Okay, so first, spoiler alert, I'm not going to blow anything up. God took care of my hair a long time ago, so there's none of that coming off. And I can't sing or dance, but I do definitely believe in freedom. So, good afternoon. Whew. And I'm nervous. So, good afternoon, TEDx. As fellow TEDxers, we know that there are two rules that TEDx lives by: no politics, no controversy, and so my topic is abortion. So growing up, my father used to tell this joke. What's the definition of a nanosecond? The time between when the light turns green and the New Yorker behind you starts honking. That's about where we're at with the chaos that is abortion discussions right now. So it's really amazing. And I hope that I have a little bit more than a nanosecond, well, roughly maybe 9.5, 10 minutes, to talk to you about a personal journey that I took, which actually gives me hope that there might be a better, more inclusive future. So let's start with one thing that both sides agree on. There is no woman who wakes up in the morning and goes, what a great day for an abortion. So honestly, the sad and ironic thing is, if we go back to mid-19th century America, I wouldn't be here and we wouldn't be having this discussion. In the first place, abortion was legal. It was as safe as any other procedure, which means I wouldn't want to have one. And it was mainly performed by women. In fact, when the laws started changing in the 1870s, it wasn't because of the church, and it wasn't on moral grounds. It was the American Medical Association trying to get the practice away from female practitioners and give it over to male doctors. Abortion, yeah, it's true. Abortion and contraception have been around for thousands of years and have been part of most cultures. My personal history is a little bit more recent, high school. My high school class was the first class in a 75-year proud history of an all-girls school to allow in boys. And so instantly I gained 100 sisters, a totally different view of the world, and to know what it's like to wait at a unisex bathroom. That was difficult. So when a 14-year-old friend of mine got pregnant and the father didn't want to have anything to do with it, she asked if I could come to the clinic for moral support. So yep, my first sex ed lesson was by a counselor in the clinic talking about responsibilities while my teenage bravado kind of wilted and I melted into my chair. In my 20s, my significant other and I were there for real. And I will tell you that it's an experience that never leaves you. 1 in 4 women in America will have an abortion by the time of their 45. So I know that there's a lot of you out there who know what I'm saying when I say that life has many forks, and this is one that I wish that I could have avoided, as well as millions before and millions after me. So you may ask yourself, what on earth happened between then and 2016? And I will tell you with absolute certainty, I have no idea. All I know is that my friend Brewster invited me to a reproductive rights themed dinner. Yeah, they have those in San Francisco. And I heard statistics that just blew me away. There's a woman in prison in Pennsylvania on abortion charges. Legislators in Ohio introduced legislation that would give the death penalty to abortion doctors. There are so many clinics closed in the Deep South right now that there's only 1 clinic for every 1 million women, and that's only going to go up as you've been reading about Georgia. So it just blew me away. 1 in 4 women might have an abortion will have an abortion by the time she's 45, and there's 1 clinic for every 1 million women. Something snapped. And so afterwards, Brewster and I were talking. And Brewster has this amazing way of getting people to take on crusades that may heal the world. He calls them tombstone crusades. As in, if you died tomorrow, what would you want on your tombstone? And I'm guessing, despite that loud noise, that would be part of mine. So I found myself a month later, in March of 2016, taking off from Asbury Park, where I live, on a 4-month sojourn across the Deep South with Coco. So we went to Mississippi, Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, West Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Kentucky. And what we found was really amazing, that abortion has a very real and very human face. It could be the face of a 20-something that I talked to in Toledo. She was working 2 jobs just to support her kids and still found time every single week to escort women into the clinic past the protesters. Or it could be the desperate, agonized face of a woman she told me about who literally shoved her 2 kids at this escort saying, "I've got no place to go and I just can't afford another kid. Please look after them till I'm done." But it was also the face of a protester in the rain, quietly setting up a lawn chair and holding up a soggy sign saying, "Please don't do it." Because, as she told me, she never misses a day to try and save a life. The road we traveled on was very 19th century. It's not what you knew, it's who you knew. And the grapevine, trust me, travels much faster than any internet and is much more effective. So, Coco and I would hop in the car and go from town to town with our introductions and talk with pro-choice, grassroots organizations and those protesting against them. You can click that off. She's cute. She did spell me in my driving, as you can notice. We broke our rule once. I heard about a 2,000-strong anti-abortion rally in Kentucky, actually through NPR. And we decided we had to go. And I'd heard the stories about abortion doctors being killed and violence. And so when I entered that rally, my heart was racing. And I checked to see where all the exits were. Not that I could have made it in time, but I felt better looking for them. But something strange happened. Talking with people of all ages and genders and races, I realized that it wasn't hate and anger that was driving them. It was desperation and sadness. They felt that women having abortion were just tragically misguided. And there honestly is a really interesting feeling when you look in the agonized face of an 85-year-old woman who's basically in tears, telling you she just doesn't understand how anyone could take the life of an unborn child. On the opposite side, there was equal amount of sadness and even more desperation. Single women looking back at the protesters and saying, "You have no rights over my body. You have no rights. I make my decisions." Married women living paycheck to paycheck, trying to figure out how on earth they could afford 3 full weeks' pay and travel 5 hours only to have a procedure that could have been done in their own home for half the price 150 years ago. To me, if there was a face that will haunt me of the face of an unwanted, unplanned pregnancy, the tragedy of it, it was this amazing, beautiful, intelligent woman of color who worked in the Red Roof Inn where I was staying. We were just chatting about our backgrounds, and I was wondering why someone so intelligent, so driven, was not somewhat further up the economic food chain. And she told me that when she was in high school, she was voted valedictorian, she was head cheerleader, she had a full scholarship to a state college, and she had grand plans. Unfortunately, she was never taught about birth control. And when she got pregnant, she told the father, he beat her into a coma. And through tears, mine, not hers, she was so much braver than I was. As I understand it, by the time she got out of the coma, there wasn't a choice to be made, so she dropped out of school. Now, can you imagine what that woman's life could have been like, what millions of women's life could be like if they could choose when to get pregnant and with whom? Sorry. What we found in all our travels was that there was a common theme. Where sex education was incomplete or inaccurate, unwanted pregnancies were high. I talked to multiple women in Louisiana and Alabama who were taught in school that condoms were 0% effective. So why is it that when an unwanted pregnancy brings so much grief to both sides, do only 13 states require that sex education be medically or scientifically accurate? There is a direct correlation between inaccurate and abstinence-only sex education and the highest teen pregnancy rates in the country. So I stepped back and I wanted to know how do other countries deal with this? And I did a little research. And I found, for example, that France has a 35-hour required sex ed class, and their teen pregnancy rate is half half of what ours is, and declining at a sharper rate. Look, I would love to wave a magic wand and change all the state sex ed laws tomorrow. I'd also love the Jets to win another Super Bowl, but I'm not sure without a lot of help either is going to happen in my lifetime. So, let's take back the narrative. Let's reach people where they live online. The overwhelming majority of abortions are for women under 29 and their partners, and that's where they live. So let's co-opt pre-millennial influencers to create a series of viral sex ed videos that are medically and scientifically accurate and acceptable to both sides. Let's teach that contraception is effective, especially when done correctly. Let's teach that even after marriage, that you can be true to your religious and moral values and still avoid an unwanted pregnancy. There is nowhere in the Bible with any prohibitions on birth control. And let's teach what both sides talk about, that there is a way to say no and maintain a relationship. Look, I know we live in a polarized society, and no side is going to give an inch where they have political power. So let's take back the narrative now and put women and their partners first in a way to reduce an unwanted pregnancy through better dialogue. What about if one of our tombstones read, "I saved 500,000 lives"? And whether you are meaning babies or saving women from having to make that particular decision, if you think about it, whatever side you're on, the tombstone is the same. So let's start an online crusade to save our people. Thank you.